fellow collectors, and welcome to Long's Toys. Today we are taking a look at Web Splasher's Doc Ock from the Spider-Man line from Hasbro. Now this is of course part of the Epic Hero series, and if you guys know me at all, I'm not a huge fan of gimmick toys like this. I've kind of talked about it before, like with the Warrior class Cyberverse toys. Whenever they have gimmicks that kind of take away from the functionality of the toy, I'm not a huge fan of it, and I'm even less of a fan of like water toys or slime toys or anything that will kind of ruin the integrity of the toy. I know getting it wet doesn't necessarily ruin the integrity, but I don't like to make a mess. I'm here for display purposes, so I'm not here to have any kind of weird gimmick that one, takes away from the basic functionality of the toy, or two, makes some kind of mess. So I decided to grab just this one. Now, Web Splashers is kind of a whole subline they're doing. There's various different versions of Spider-Man. I think there's a Miles one as well. You know, it's not something that I'm totally interested in, but I wanted to at least grab Doc Ock because we don't have any villains in this whole Epic Hero series. I mean, we have a few, but you know, compared to the amount of superhero characters we have, we are in desperate need of villains. And so I thought, okay, here's Doc Ock. At least it's a Spider-Man villain. You know, I can get it. Maybe I can take the water gimmick off of it somehow. We'll figure that out. But here is Web Splasher's Doc Ock. I found this at my local Walmart. I believe they're showing up in Targets now as well. It seems that Walmart and Target kind of lost their exclusivity. I think Walmart had the Mechasaurs as an exclusive, and I think Target had like early access to Spider-Man. All that must have run out because now both stores have pretty much everything, which is nice because it helps, you know, the chances of finding stuff in stores. So I do appreciate that. But yeah, so we have this kind of plastic-free packaging here. You have the little window cut out. You can see Doc Ock inside. Obviously, some artwork here of the toy on the front. Blasting water, as it is very excited to tell you that the toy does. Epic Gear Super Equipment. I guess that's actually just different languages. So, okay, Epic Gear. There we go. We'll see how this goes. We have some nice artwork of Doc Ock on this side. Over here, you know, telling you how to use it. It's just one of those kind of, you know, uses suction to fill it and then, you know, uses the squeezing to propel it out kind of thing. Very common for water-based toys. But yeah, so here we go. Here he is again on the back, showing the water splashing gimmick, and then just some product shots of the figure and the apparatus over here. So pretty basic packaging. I'm going to go ahead, get everything out of the box, and we'll take a closer look. So here's Doc Ock out of the packaging. Let's see, I'm going to take the figure out first. We'll take a look at that, and then we'll talk about the harness. So I'm just going to put this piece off to the side for the moment. Here is the Doc Ock figure. Now, as you can probably see right away, he is only 5 points of articulation, which is kind of a shame. I still don't really understand why that's the case, but we'll get into it in a moment. So he does have a ball joint for the head. Can look up slightly, look down slightly, tilt side to side slightly, but he can certainly look side to side, no problem. You have a spin here at the shoulders, and then for the hips, you can pretty much only go about that far back because of the butt flap, and then you can kick about that far forward. So I would say maybe 45 degrees, 50 degrees tops in terms of articulation. So he doesn't have a lot. Now, I get Doc Ock's not a spry guy. He doesn't really need to pull off Spider-Man poses, but it would have been nice to just kind of give him the normal amount of articulation, and I don't really understand why they couldn't. If it was a budget thing, you know, if this was going to be the same price as like a normal figure, which is $10.99, I would understand all day. You have to sacrifice some things to keep the price down, but it's not. This set is about $17.99, almost double, and so I don't really understand why the figure had to be modified, especially because I don't know this for sure because I'm not going to buy it, but I'm sure someone can answer in the comments. The Spider-Man version probably has all the same articulation. Now, granted, it's probably because they're using a mold they've already made, and then they're going to just, you know, put a backpack on that, so it's not really any new tooling cost. But this is just a weird move to me. And like I said, I'm sure there's some financial explanation for it that I'm not privy to, but it's just weird. I mean, it is a dense figure. I'll give it that. It's a very solid, dense figure, and it looks good. I really do like the design. I like the suit. The colors are great. The head sculpt is fantastic. They really nailed the Doc Ock with the haircut and the glasses. So this is a good figure. It's just missing articulation, and I just don't really understand why. Now, if we put him to the side, well, we'll do a quick. Here's Spider-Man quick. You can see that they are the same size, But again, he doesn't have the hinge in the shoulders or the hips. He doesn't have elbows. It almost looks like he has wrist articulation, but he does not. It's just a shame. He's just missing obvious articulation points, but they do still look good together. I like seeing them together. And again, we need more villains in this line. So that's why I kind of felt obligated to get him, even though I knew he wasn't really going to be up to snuff, but I just thought I need more villains, right? So we'll put him off to the side. So here's the thing with the harness, I guess we'll call it. So you have this piece here. This lifts up. You can see that there are two little holes right there, which just fit on there. And it's very snug. I'll give it that. It really does secure in. It's not going to, come apart. You really kind of have to pull to even get it off. And in the box, this piece comes separately and kind of plugs into this piece here. You just kind of snap it in. There's like a little spot up here and down here, and you just kind of pop it in. And that's pretty secure as well. So I don't really have any problems with its stability. When it attaches to him, it will stay pretty snug, and I do appreciate that. As I mentioned earlier, I'm not a fan of water gimmicks, and I feel like this whole toy is in such service to the water gimmick that it kind of misses out in so many other areas, and that's kind of a shame. So you have these tentacles down here. I should say there are three kind of normal tentacles, and they have these pieces here that spin on the end, which is kind of cool. And then you have the hose here that goes to the fourth tentacle with this extra piece here, and then that has the, spout here, and how this is supposed to work. This kind of first part where the tentacles plug in is hard plastic, and then there's this softer rubber plastic here, and it's just kind of a, push this down, put it into water, and then allow the suction when you release it to draw in the water, and then press this again to then shoot out the water. Very basic concept, but I don't know. First of all, I don't care about it. I don't remember any time that Doc Ock shot water out of the tentacles. Maybe I missed an issue. But the hose just kind of gets in the way of everything, which is kind of a bummer. Now, you probably could remove it. I would think with little effort, you could probably just pull on this until the glue eventually breaks, and you could just take this hose off completely, which I might still do. I haven't decided yet. You can see that the kind of, the hose kind of, makes it so that this can't really snap on. What I really wanted to do, and this thing comes in the box as separate pieces. So the tentacles just plug in. They're just pegs. They just pop into peg holes. Very simple. They can move around in there. If you ever need to rearrange them, they unpeg very easily. They're not going to fall out. They're not loose or anything, but they're very easily removable, and you could rearrange them around if you want. What I would kind of like to do, and like I said, I might wimp out. I haven't decided yet. I would like to take this gray piece off, if that's possible. Now, the question is, if this is all one molded piece and then this was just painted gray, which I kind of suspect, I'm not going to be able to take that off unless I cut it, which again, I guess I could do. But if I could get this piece off and just connect it to this, then I could have, 4 normal looking tentacles, and then I think I could start to deal with it. The other thing I could just do is if I just took the hose piece off, one of his tentacles would just have this kind of dark gray box, but whatever, they'd mostly be normal. Again, I haven't decided what I'm going to do yet. If anyone has customized theirs, please in the comments let me know how it worked out for you. I don't really want to have to buy a second one of these if I break something or mess it up. As I mentioned, it's $17.99, which I think is a bit much, but we'll get to that at the end. So you have these 4 tentacles. These 2 are kind of molded the same way, which makes me think that they're supposed to be on the bottom. And it almost looks like they're meant to kind of do the pose where he kind of walks around on the 2 bottom legs. And I always really liked that. I think that's a really cool pose for Ock, where he kind of walks on the bottom 2 tentacles and just kind of hangs there in the center. I've always thought that's kind of funny, and I just like that pose. And you can almost pull that off, but because they're at such a weird angle, it doesn't really work right. When I first saw the pictures for this, because these are so flat, I thought for sure that's what they're going for. This is meant to kind of, hit on the ground and pose like that. But if we put him back in here, and it's very simple, you just tuck him right underneath and close that around, and he fits pretty snugly. It just doesn't really work. So you can kind of do it like this, but then his feet are basically touching the ground, so it kind of defeats the purpose. If he had knee joints, we could maybe tuck them back a little bit, and then it would work out. But unfortunately, like, this just doesn't... Like, I get what they're going for, but because his feet touch the ground, it kind of makes it superfluous. And then you kind of have this angle here, which isn't really doing anything. And I almost wish, you know, make it so it could grab and latch onto another figure with some kind of articulation in here, you know, which they did not do. And then this one, you know, again, these can all move around because they're just, you know, pegs and peg holes. So that's very simple. And this one, I think they have good positioning, I guess, like the molded, what do I want to call this? The position, I guess just positioning. I don't know. Like, they look dynamic, especially like this one up here, I think looks really cool. But because these can't move at all, they're just hard molded plastic, your options are limited. So for this, you know, it looks like it was very clearly meant to be down like this, but that doesn't really work. And I thought about trying to switch these, but then the angle would kind of be back like this, and that's going to look even more ridiculous. So they just don't really work out all that well, to be honest. I like this one. I think the design and the pose of this one looks really cool and dynamic. These two, when you're trying to just use them as claws, I mean, I guess I could, let me see if I just try to switch these around purely for positioning of attack instead of balance. I guess those kind of work. Like, they're a little bit better if I kind of do it down like that. Like, that kind of works. But then again, if I tried to do it like he was going to walk on them, it'd be really back here, and that makes no sense. So I guess if you're just trying to have them face forward for attack, this is the configuration you'd use. If you want to kind of have him walk on them, you just kind of have to switch them. Yeah, I don't know. I just don't, of all the different things I try to use them for, I just don't really think it's that successful in any capacity, and that's a shame. But yeah, I don't know. It just, there's not really much to do with it except have it squirt water. That's kind of all this thing is meant to do, and that doesn't really appeal to me at all. So unless you really want a Doc Ock water toy, I don't really know what else this is good for. Wanted to do a quick group shot with the only other two villains in this line so far. Again, that's why I kind of felt obligated to pick them up, because I just need more villains. Maybe I'll just kind of put the apparatus off to the side and have him in a laboratory somewhere or something. But yeah, these guys, you know, we definitely need more villains for the line. I really do like both of these. This guy's just unfortunately a swing and a miss, but at least with the apparatus, they're all kind of about the same size. And then one last thing I did want to highlight, one kind of neat plus about this being an apparatus, you can put it on other figures. So, you know, you could go ahead and pop Spidey on here. Now, he doesn't fit as well, so he kind of sinks in it, which looks a little silly. But if you're just kind of posing him, obviously gravity will do its job and kind of put this in a way that hopefully should work. But again, it's very heavy, and I think, again, that's kind of why he had to be so bulky, was so that he wouldn't just fall over immediately when you put this on his back, because it's so back heavy and it's just not really meant to be displayed on anyone else. They can wear it, but it's just not really functional in terms of posing somebody with it on. So I have to admit, this one's kind of a bummer, and I do want to say this up front. I do understand that this line is not necessarily aimed at collectors. I do understand that. But I do feel like a lot of collectors, especially collectors who love 4-inch figures, are buying a lot of this line. And so this review is obviously meant for collectors. So before everyone trashes me in the comments, well, this isn't for you. I get it. But as someone who loves to collect this stuff, I'm going to just give my honest thoughts on it. So that aside, this is in total service to the water gimmick. And it's really kind of a shame. I love the character of Doc Ock. I would have really liked a new normal 4-inch Doc Ock character in this line, especially a line that is so hurting for villain characters. As I showed you, there are only 2 before this. I know we have Carnage coming, but he's not quite out yet. It's just, the figure had to be so much more solid to be able to wear this apparatus without falling over. As a result of that, it lost a lot of its articulation. The harness gimmick itself is just, it doesn't really look like Doc Ock's harness. I wish it was just kind of something that you could peg into his back, so that way he wouldn't lose all the details of his suit. Because like I said, the suit does look good. The one thing I do really like about this release, the Doc Ock figure aesthetically I think looks really good. The suit design is great. The color palette's nice. The head sculpt is really great. So if this was a normal Doc Ock figure that had the full articulation, I'd be very happy with it. Even if, you know, the apparatus was as it is exactly right now. I understand that they had to make him so much more solid and dense to be able to not fall over immediately while wearing this, and I truly believe that's why he lost his articulation. I think it's purely in service to not falling over while he's wearing this backpack, as I showed momentarily Spider-Man wearing it, and you could see right away he was nowhere near being able to stand up with it on its back, and that's why I truly believe they had to make this figure so dense and lose the articulation points. So that's a bummer. The apparatus itself, I don't think the arms are that successful. I mean, obviously I don't care about the one that squirts water. I think the backpack is overly bulky in service to that water gimmick, and it doesn't look quite right on him. As I said previously, it covers up his suit design, which I really liked, which is kind of a bummer. The bottom tentacles, to me, look like they're meant to be stood on, but that doesn't really work. And if that's not the case, if they're just meant to be like this in the front for attack purposes, I don't really think that looks that great. I would have rather had the kind of pincer claws and more of a dynamic, like, grabbing mid-pince pose, something like that, if that makes any sense. It would be nice to have one of the tentacles able to actually grab a character. Like, I feel like if this one's going to be the water gimmick, make this one in kind of more of a closed so it could grab onto another figure kind of pose or something like that. It just feels like it's trying to be everything, but it's not really succeeding in any of it. It's totally in service to the water gimmick, and I don't know how well that works because I don't want to load my figures with water. I don't want, you know, mildew to get in the tube or anything like that, so I just don't even bother with that kind of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. It's a shame. It's a shame. Now, look, if, you know, the other demographic grabs this and it's a water toy and they love it, okay, fine. Then that target audience was met, and maybe it sells great. I don't know. I'm obviously not going to be monitoring that stuff. But from a purely collector standpoint, I don't think you're going to enjoy this one. I mean, it's a decent Doc Ock figure, and I do like having the Doc Ock figure, but it just, the whole apparatus is a swing and a miss, in my opinion, for collectors specifically. Maybe we'll get a different Doc Ock down the road. Maybe you can track down the old Universe Doc Ock. I think one of those exists. I don't know, but this is, I don't think, gonna satisfy your Doc Ock craving for a 4-inch line. It's just not really getting the job done, in my opinion. So let me know what you guys think in the comments below. Please like, share, and subscribe. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thank you so much for watching.